What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA show powered by FanDuel. Get started today at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, for a special draft day edition of the All NBA show. Legs, this one, all the big moves happened yesterday, save for one or the days before. But today, there's still some interesting stuff. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. I had a game last night in OKC, as you know, Phoenix, OKC.
Thrilling.
Good game for a half. And then OKC turned up the heat a little bit. I don't know what Dagnall said to them at halftime, but it certainly was effective. And I ended up with a blowout game. Got on a plane, flew back. A lot of stuff took place while I was in the air. I'm trying to catch up on all of it. But, you know, a lot of these, it's interesting, man. I feels like just about every team in the league did something, with the exception of a few teams in the West that are a little bit interesting because they didn't do anything.
And I think that's going to be part of today's discussion, the teams that did not make moves, including the Suns, who did some stuff, but I don't know if it was meaningful stuff. We'll get into that. The Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, there are a handful of teams that you wondered if they were going to try to make a push and did not. So we're going to break them all down for you. And I'll give you the order here. We're going to start off today by what I think is the biggest deal that went down today. And that was the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've seen a lot of moves from teams that are trying to become contenders. The Lakers, some of these teams that were on the fringe trying to push themselves up a tier, but we haven't seen the teams in tier one make a move until today. And what we saw, to me, is a fascinating one. The Cavs get DeAndre Hunter, and the Hawks get Caris LeVert, George Niang, 3 seconds, 2 pick swaps. So there's kind of, they paid a good price, but they got a great player. And this was an area to me where there was one question I had for the Cavs. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Do they have the wings to be able to match up? They have great guards. They have great bigs. Do they have the wings? I love DeAndre Hunter. I think he's a great player, especially in the role he's going to be there. So for me, this was a great move for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But what do you think?
I mean, this is incredible for the Cavaliers. This is one of those moves that's going to be a little bit drowned out by, obviously, the biggest one, which is the Luka Doncic situation. And then, of course, Jimmy Butler. That's a big one because of the team he went to. That's still kind of interesting to see the impact there. But this move could be as impactful as any move in terms of helping a team win a championship. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, because Cleveland's in the mix for that. They're good enough to go toe-to-toe with Boston. They've proven it all year, and they just got significantly better because you're right. This is one thing they didn't have. A wing with this kind of length and defensive prowess because DeAndre Hunter is legitimately in that 6'8", 6'9" range. He's got great reach. He's a little bit streaky with his shooting, but you just added a different physical profile to your wings than you had before. I think this is an amazing coup for the Cavaliers. And look, you gave up Caris LeVert. He's been important to them. George Niang, that's to me, that's not going to be a big difference maker for the Cavs. And then, they got they gave up a couple second-round picks. So I think Atlanta will then take those second-round picks and trade those in for a portable vacuum cleaner for your car.
Yeah, I know you love those. There's a lot of, by the way, the real star of today was the second-round pick, Leg. So I can't wait to get your take on all of them. There was like 30 second-round picks that were traded today. I know you have those all circled on your board as things to track.
They're the tipping point for this trading deadline, man. Believe me.
Well, here's a couple things about it. So DeAndre Hunter, you mentioned he was streaky. His career has been streaky in part because of injuries and different things. So part of me wonders if there's actually a good shooter in there, a more consistent shooter in the years to come. And on top of that, Atlanta was one situation. He's coming off the bench. He was a good player there, but that's not the Cavs. The Cavs are a fully formed team, right? The Cavs have everything they need. And by the way, the best three-point shooting team in the NBA. So one, you can afford a streaky shooter. But I also would bet on DeAndre Hunter becoming a more reliable shooter in the moments to come. But here's what he is. I actually love his defense. He has all the physical positives to be a great wing defender. And I think he's a really good keep your man in front of you defender. Doesn't get a ton of blocks and steals and that kind of stuff, but he keeps guys in front of you. And that was with the Atlanta Hawks. Now you give him Jared Allen. Now you give him Evan Mobley behind you. I just don't think anybody's getting around him. And when you look at Caris LeVert and Okongwu and some of the other players that they've had, the question for me was always, all right, it's the Celtics. You have to beat the Celtics. They just lost to them the other night. I look at DeAndre Hunter and I go, he gives you a guy that in a playoff series, you should feel reasonably confident that he can make an impact, not shut down Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, but make an impact on those guys to take away one of their edges or just take it down a notch. So to me, that's why I think this is a home run move. In fact, I never really thought of it. I don't really think about like Cavs and this or that. But now that I see it, I go, I actually love that fit because I think you're going to get the best version of him.
Listen, I'll take it a step further. I think that the Boston Celtics are the reason they did this.
Yeah,
solely.
100%.
They're looking at that team. They're looking at that team, and you got Tatum and Brown, and you look at the matchups that they currently have there. It's not favorable for the Cavaliers, and this changes some of that. Now, I also talked about. Listen, he's their second leading scorer. I mean, he averaged 19 points a game in Atlanta. Yeah. And so a lot of people wouldn't think that. So his scoring average is up.
Off the bench.
Looking at it now, his shooting percentage is up this year, 39%. He had some years of 32%, 35%. I probably haven't been paying as much attention to him this year. He's up to 39%, man. That's reasonable. That's more than reasonable. They'll take 39% all day long, even if that number drops off a little in the playoffs, which they typically do, and he's at 35%, that's still doable with the defense he's going to be giving you. If that number starts at 32 and now you're 24 in the playoffs, that hurts. But that's not what we're talking about here. So he's found a better rhythm. He has been hurt a lot throughout his career. 37 games this year. So again, he's, missed in that 13 game range, something like that. He's missed games, but man, this is a needle mover for the Cavaliers. And this isn't a star player. That's the trades we focus on all the time. This is a guy that's a non-star that is a needle mover in terms of winning the whole thing potentially. So yeah, I can't say enough about it, man. I was actually, this one I caught through a text message as I was kind of getting to my house from the airport. And I was like, oh, I love this one. So yeah, kudos to them for landing this and pulling this off.
So a couple of things. So I love it for this roster now. You don't shake up because there is a thing to me as chemistry, sometimes when you're in the number one spot and you make a trade that's positive value, how does it mess with the chemistry? Karis LeVert was important to them. I think it's okay moving on from him. George Niang, you kind of threw him to the side almost. One thing I'll say about George Niang, I think he's a winner. I think he's a really nice luxury to have as your ninth guy, because he does things the right way, good teammate, good locker room guy, all those types of things. But here's why I'm impressed by the Cavs. One, if you're trying to become a contender from where they were last year, having a lot of depth is like step one, but they use that to get the number one seed or to be in position to win the number one seed. And now the playoffs, it's like we don't need all that depth now. So you can shorten it down to say now we went from 10 guys we like to 8 guys we love. And then number two, you bring in a new coach. And how often does a new coach not mesh with the front office or have a different vision than a front office and ownership? To me, this is great alignment between ownership, front office, and coach to where you're in position. A lot of teams have Karis LeVerts and the circumstance change, and all of a sudden he has no value because, that was the old regime and it doesn't fit this or that. The ability to use Karis LeVert, be serviceable, and now turn him into DeAndre Hunter, to me, the Cavs have done everything right the last 365 days or so, or a little bit less than that, I guess. And to me, that's part of the story here is that's how you win when you're a Cleveland mid-sized market. You do everything right so that you could turn 10 guys into 8 at the right moment.
Yeah, I agree, man. They have really, the way that they've gone about building this, and people were kind of down on them actually after last year, which I thought was a little bit much because they did win a playoff series. It took them 7 games against Orlando, but then they lost to the team that was the prohibitive favorite in the league, the best team in the league by far, and they didn't have Jared Allen healthy. Yeah. So, but I thought people were being unfairly hard on them. And look, sometimes, you go through this little progression, the talent's there. Mobley takes a big leap forward this year, and now they go out and they do this. The Cavaliers have positioned themselves for a really deep playoff run. It's going to be interesting to watch. And look, there's a very good chance they're going to end up with home court advantage in the Eastern Conference, if not for the entirety of the playoffs, potentially, if they get to the finals. So this is really just a fascinating move that you can acquire a player this impactful at this age that gives you a direct need against the team you're competing with. It doesn't happen that often.
One other piece of this for the future of the Cavs. I know you love Ty Jerome. They've had some other guys, Sam Merrill, some players like that. I think just from what I've read, in the hour or so between the trade happening and us talking, I think it looks like Ty Jerome is a piece they might not be able to retain. Like they have to make some decisions. This is what we talk about. You have 10 guys and that gets whittled down to you say, this is our roster. He's been great for them. They obviously are going to have him for this run, but going forward, DeAndre Hunter might eat up some of those. They're going to have to find another Ty Jerome. They're going to have to find other George Niang and guys to fill out the back part of the roster. So that's one piece of this is going forward. I think Ty Jerome, who I know you love, it might not be part of the long-term plans.
I do, but I also think, Adam, to be fair, you can find another Ty Jerome. Yeah. It's a lot harder to find a DeAndre Hunter, and that's so that to me, these are tough decisions sometimes, and these are the hard part of the business. So, but look, we'll see where this leads, but they have to be ecstatic in Cleveland.
I want to get to the Hawks part of this a little bit later because they made another trade. So we're not going to skip over the Hawks, but let's pair it later on in the show as we talk about the other move. Let's move on now to one that happened yesterday that we did not talk about. Luka Doncic, obviously to the Lakers. We talked about that, but we knew that roster was incomplete. Lakers were going to go after a big man, and they found one of the biggest, Mark Williams, 7'2", and I didn't know this till yesterday, Legs. He has the highest standing reach of any player in the NBA, including Wembanyama. He almost can touch with his flat-footed, he could almost touch the rim. Obviously a tremendous lob threat. They get him for the price of Dalton, Knecht, Cam Reddish. They're 2031 picks straight up and 2030 picks swap. So really 2 first-round picks, or 1.5 if you want to count it that way. So Mark Williams, I liked him. He's obviously been very injury-prone, but when you talk about they needed a lob threat, this one feels like a pretty good option for him.
Look, this is an incredible pickup because that was the big question, right? What are they going to do? They have no size. Jackson Hayes is the only big guy on the roster. What are they going to do? We knew it was a problem, and you don't know what they were going to end up getting, man. There were some guys that were going to be on the move. You knew that. You saw Valanciunas change teams. Jusuf Nurkic change teams. Right? There's some other bigs, and you're saying, that doesn't do much for me, and particularly the way that Luka plays. Like Luka is used to having the screen dive, bouncy legs, lob threat. And that's a big part.
Has to.
It's a big part of Luka's game. Like he needs that next to him. They just went out and got a guy that finishes everything and dunks everything around the basket. He's also a rim protector. And so to go out and get him to fill that void, I didn't see that coming at all. There was no talk of that whatsoever because there were a lot of other names being thrown around and none of them really doing it for me. And I was trying to picture one of those big, slower centers, playing with those guys and you already have Luka. Like, I'm like, this is going to be a team that's going to be too slow and unathletic. And yet here they go. Add Mark Williams. So no, this is great. Obviously Luka is, whatever. If they didn't get Mark Williams, this whole thing is about the next 10 years with Luka Doncic. That for me. The way I'm looking at the Lakers, no matter what happens this year or next year with Bron, it doesn't really matter. It's about Luka going forward. This now actually makes them more viable now, like this year and potentially beyond. So that to me made it a lot more interesting.
I'm going to go a step further than you because I think this trade is perfect in a couple ways. It gives him the flexibility. He's young enough that, hey, maybe there's upside there, and this is our guy for the next several years. But it also gives you the flexibility of it helps us out now in theory, and if it doesn't work out, we can pivot to something else. I mean, obviously, they gave up a lot of draft capital to get him, or really they don't have anything else in the chamber. They don't have picks, so they'll have to make moves otherwise. But you mentioned his finishing on lobs. He's top 10, according to Second Spectrum. He's top 10 in baskets converted on lobs. So he's going to catch and finish. Good hands to catch, and then obviously tall enough to finish. And I always remember back to 2017 and 18 because Jokic was on the ascension there. I'm covering Jokic. And everybody had him, 7th or 8th best center in the league. And some of the guys that were ahead of him, one name always stood out was Clint Capella. And I always thought, Clint Capella is not better than Jokic. This is insane. But when you give him James Harden, all of a sudden he looks amazing. I think Mark Williams is going to have a Clint Capella-like ascension to where he looks like a superstar next to LeBron James and Luka Doncic because he should be getting the table set for him over and over and over again. And then on top of that, he's a great offensive rebounder. I mean, he's one of those guys that just really works really hard on the boards, which is another trait. Luka can be a little more aggressive trying to get the ball on the rim, and he can finish it. So that's my hot take. Mark Williams will be good there, but he'll be perceived as great because he's going to be shooting 80% from the field.
I think it's a great take. I mean, look what Luka Doncic did for Lively and Gafford. Derek Lively was like a nice player for them. You bring in Luka Doncic, and all of a sudden, they're in the finals, and everybody's talking about Derek Lively. Daniel Gafford is a guy that I really liked in Washington. I liked him well before I had any idea that he could end up in Dallas, and the Wizards were losing every night. But I'd watch the team, and I'd go, man, that's the one guy that's playing hard all the time. Daniel Gafford. He goes there. Look what he make 30-something shots in a row.
That's right. The set the record.
He set the damn record. He made 35 shots in a row or something because Luka Doncic is literally putting a bib on these guys and spoon feeding them Gerber baby food. I mean, that's literally how easy it is. Just run to the rim. And now, by the way, you also have, in addition to Luka, for the short term, you also have LeBron. You have two of the best passers that have ever lived. On the same team with a guy like Mark Williams. So I agree with you. The opportunities when Luka and LeBron are on the court together and just the way defenses have to react to all that and the amount of space in the lane for these rim runs and for a guy this long, this athletic, and by the way, 23 years old. So, yeah, man, I can't say enough about the move. Really, absolutely love it. I know those guys are ecstatic. And look, some people are talking about, what else the Lakers did. Knecht is gone. And I was getting the vibe back kind of like all year that JJ Redick was just not super invested in him. He was streaky, and when he got hot, they'd play him more. But then, he'd be yelling at him like you saw last week because he forgot to play, screaming at him. Even just like his pressers and the way he would talk about it, he seemed frustrated that I don't know if he knows thinks Dalton Knecht is tough enough for what he wanted him to be. So, yeah, it stinks. I like Knecht a lot. I think he's going to have a very good career. He's that weird combination of shooting ability and athleticism. So they lose that. But when you look at the totality of it, I don't think anybody's really going to be crying any tears in LA today when you added Luka Doncic and now you picked up the center you needed.
Absolutely not. Before we move on to Charlotte, I do have one. So here's the downside of the move. Number one, they have no flexibility, right? So it's going to be hard for them to wrangle out of it again. They always will. It's the Lakers. They just always wrangle out of these situations. Somebody falls into their lap. But you mentioned he was a good defensive player. Opponents have made 68% of their attempts within 5 feet of the basket when he's been on the court. As tall as he is, as long as he is, I actually think he's a poor defender in a giant person's body who can, like I know I saw some things on the timeline the other day about he's gone up against Jokic and this or that. Jokic averaging 30, 15, and 15 against him, I think, on his career. He's not a guy that's going to be a defensive, challenge, in my opinion, right out of the package.
Done that against Anthony Davis too, so that's not fair.
Well, I'm just saying against your good centers, this is not a guy that Walker Kessler to me is a good defensive player, and Jokic should give him the business, but hey, he has to work for it. I don't think that's where Mark Williams is personally. But the other piece of this is that he just hasn't been healthy.
Here's what I'm going to predict. Are you ready? I'm going to make a prediction for you. First of all, he's on a terrible team. He's on a team that lacks seriousness. They lack seriousness. They lack concentration. There's defensive breakdowns
going from LaMelo to LeBron.
Defensive breakdowns all over the court all the time. So look, the number you just gave, guys finishing, within a certain distance of him. Yeah. I want to see the guy play in relevant games, and I'll make my own determination on that. There's no reason a guy that long and that athletic shouldn't be a factor defensively. But when you're on a terrible team, a lot of times even your own effort level and concentration isn't there because there's a lack of overall seriousness about what you're doing when you run onto the court every night. I know the difference. That's obviously not the case now. And there's going to be real accountability out of this coaching staff, out of LeBron James. And I have a feeling in this little short sample you're going to get here before the playoffs, he's got a chance to go to an organization that's got expectations. They're going to be some coaching going on he hasn't gotten, and more importantly, internal policing from his own teammates. I think you're going to see a leap forward in that regard for Mark Williams. I'm going to be watching it carefully. I hope the trade went down today, Thursday. I don't know. I guess he's probably not playing Saturday. I'm doing that game, Luka's debut. It'd be nice if he was there, but if that trade went down when did that trade get on, yesterday or today?
It might happen, man. They might try to make it happen. I mean, that's a marquee game for the NBA.
I don't know. I hope so. I'd like to see him myself Saturday.
Be incredible. On the Hornets side here, they hit the reset, really, honestly. And I mean, they weren't going anywhere anyway this year. But you get rid of both of their centers now. And they get Dalton Knecht in this deal, who we both like, and maybe that's an opportunity for him to go there. You mentioned the toughness, the seriousness. I think that's pretty common for younger players, although he's a little old, but just a rookie player. Give him a chance to learn those things over the course of 2-3 seasons. And by the way, you give LaMelo Ball a great shooter. I'm interested in that. But then they get these distant firsts. And if you think about it, the Hornets have never really been patient, in my opinion. They've had a lot of, they're like the Bulls, where they kind of always are aiming for this like middle quality team. And their moves they've made, moving on from both centers to Phoenix and obviously to LA, but getting back draft capital, this almost looks like they are going to restart the LaMelo Ball era with a 3-year plan. Like, hey, we have a lot of draft capital now in the future, near and distant future, and let's start and try to do this the right way. So I'm at least intrigued by Charlotte in the way that I at least can see a plan here that maybe will work out.
I hope so, because LaMelo Ball is very entertaining. He puts up crazy stat lines, really productive, flashy. It hasn't amounted to anything important. So I would like to see him play in a situation where there was more of a plan and him play games that mean a little bit more. So you can get an idea for like what it means. You talk about, hey, he's going to have a shooter next to him. He'll like that. And I'm saying, yeah, that is true. Most point guards with passing ability like his do love that. But at the same time, LaMelo Ball's favorite shooter is LaMelo Ball right now.
True.
So that'll be interesting to see, that pairing. I hope so, because I'm pulling for him, because I don't know, man. For me, that's one of those ones, you grab some popcorn and sit down. Like, this is going to be fun when you watch LaMelo Ball, but I want it to be more than that.
Yeah. All right, let's take our first break. On the other side, we want to get into a lot more of the trades. A lot of these are all smaller trades, and even talk about the teams who didn't make a trade at the deadline, including the Phoenix Suns, who made trades but did not move on from Kevin Durant. So are they cooked with some of the reports? We'll get to that on the other side. First, Super Bowl 59, 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're predicting the first touchdown, who will take home the MVP trophy, or coin toss, FanDuel makes it an easy place for you to feel the bets and feel the thrill of every single minute. With live betting all game long, you can jump in on the action, adjust your bets, and ride the wave of excitement from kickoff to the final whistle. Plus, to make the Super Bowl even sweeter, new customers can score $200 when you make your first bet. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. It's one of the most fun days of the year to hop on the app and throw some bets down. In fact, if you don't care about these two teams, I think a lot of people in like the Midwest, in the West, hate the Chiefs, and a lot of people in the East hate the Eagles. So this is like a hate fest for most people that don't have skin in the game. We'll hop on, make it a little bit more interesting, throw down a couple wagers. That way you have something to pull for while everybody in the world is watching this game. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/all-NBA. And their official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Must be 21 and older and present in Colorado. I'm doing this on my phone because my laptop got ruined and I'm having a hard time here. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. The shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them a perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style, and they probably have a style in your team's favorite colors. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show with myself and Tim Legler. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we are doing this 4 times a week live. And by the way, we have a very special show coming up on Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have our morning show, but then we're going to go live 8 to 10 doing a Manning Cast style NFL Red Zone style, hop around the association, watching a bunch of different games and getting mine and Legs' commentary on those games. We'll have some guests stopping by. I think it's going to be a really cool way. If you're a fan of the NBA and you want to just hang out with me and Legs while we sit together and talk hoops, this is your place. Follow that link. We have it in the description as well. And here's the key. Make sure you sign up for playback. So when that day comes, you're not trying to download and do all these different things. It's a great app. It allows you to watch the game while hearing us. It's really, really cool. And like I said, we'll have some guests along, and we're going to be doing these for the upcoming week. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. All right, let's move on now to our next trade. And the next one I want to get to is the Phoenix Suns. They acquired Cody Martin, Vasa Micic, and a second, and they sent out Jusuf Nurkic and a 2026 first-round pick. So they send out Nurkic with a first. You knew they wanted to get rid of him. And what they get back is Cody Martin, maybe, because obviously he's been injured. And will he even crack the rotation, being he's kind of like Ryan Dunn in a lot of ways. I think he will play, but you wonder what you get there. So we wondered, Legs, coming into this, were they going to try to get Jimmy Butler? And then were they going to move on from Kevin Durant and reset? There was a report from Ramona Shelburne that yesterday's practice was really awkward because there's horrible vibes in the locker room. And at the end of the day, they didn't do much other than add Cody Martin. So what do you make of that?
I don't know what to make of it. They're not in any better position than they were, other than you get a guy out of there that you have no use for, that you're Nurkic, who, he's a productive player. His rebounding numbers and stuff per minute played are good. He's a good passer, but he didn't want him. And they have 4 centers on their roster, and he hasn't played in a long time. And he basically came out and said he had no relationship with Budenholzer. So, I'm sitting there doing the game yesterday, and I'm looking down at the end of the bench. You can barely see him. He's so far down the end of the bench. He's practically in the tunnel because he knows he's not going to play. And so I was expecting something to happen. So they I guess by addition, by subtraction, you get out a guy that's kind of unhappy, maybe moody. That helps. But how tangibly are they better today than they were yesterday? That we all were wondering about Durant because the report was he wasn't going to play last night. And it's really, okay, maybe he's going to get traded. And then we get to the arena, he's warming up. It looked like, I thought maybe he's about to go. He looked pretty good. And then he didn't play. And so you're still wondering, like, man, are they still trying to work on something for Durant? And they didn't do anything. Yeah. And now here you go. Beal wouldn't waive his no trade. He's there. Booker's there. Durant's there. It hasn't gelled. Although I saw an interesting stat yesterday, Adam. When Booker and Durant have played together since they got together in the first place, they win 67% of the time. And that's good. That's true this year. It's this year and for the 2 years they've been together, 67% of the time. But there's something about their team. And you saw it yesterday, man. They just let go of the rope in the second half and got absolutely destroyed by Oklahoma City. So there's nothing really to think. They didn't do anything. They're going to be the same. They're a 500 team that can get hot and win a game in the playoffs or be tough for a couple games in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, they're not tough enough. They're not physical enough. And I don't think they handle adversity very well in the course of games.
Yeah. The report about them being as miserable as that seems, and look, if you watch that team, you can see it. Most nights you watch them, they look like a team that doesn't believe in themselves or enjoy the process of trying to, come together. And so now a trade deadline passes, and this is what you do. I'm with you. They're a talented team. They'll be dangerous in, a play-in or a playoff just because of the talent they have on the roster. But you have a hard time thinking they're more than that. It's not just talent that's going to get you all the way to the conference finals. You might luck up and win a series. You might push a series far, but you're not going to win series after series after series without all those other things. And so we've seen this show before, and they're going to run it back this year. I don't expect this to be long. The one thing I'll say is Jusuf Nurkic is not a terrible player. He's become one for them. He's not a good player, but he's not a terrible one. And from the other side of this, from Charlotte's side, I do look at it and go, that's the type of swing you take when you are a rebuilding team. Nurkic's value is at an all-time low, and he's got years on his contract. Can you take him in for a year because you have nothing to lose and just get him back to merely tradable? So you collect an asset to get a guy, you build him up for 8 months just to be passable, and then you move him on. And that's the playbook for a team in Charlotte's position. So I at least like the thinking there. You get an asset now, which, by the way, might be a great one for Phoenix, depending on how things break. You get a good asset, and you have a chance to raise Nurkic up so that a year from now, some team says, Nurkic, he's okay.
That's fair enough, because he's certainly not past his prime. I mean, he's still a young enough player, and he is productive. To your point, you're right. He's not. I don't know if I would label. You said he's not good. I mean, he's close to good. You know what I mean? It's not like,
Yeah,
because you say somebody's not good, then you say, what are they then? They're not even a rotational player to me if you're not a good player. I think
that's not what I mean.
At least good. I'd give him
Yeah.
that. So let's see. Let's see if they can make something of these last 25 games and turn him into something that somebody else wants.
I love the Martin twins. I like Cody Martin. I think he's a smart player and a good player. When you put him on a good and smart team, he'll be good. The Suns are good in a different way that I just don't think that's a good fit for him. I like him. I think if there's movement in your offense and a lot of things going on, he can cut, he could rebound, he can shoot sometimes. So he could fit into that. But if his job is to go do what Ryan Dunn does, which is stand in the corner and wait for a shot and shoot it, he is a 31% or 31 or 32% three-point shooter. So I like Cody Martin, but I don't like him in Phoenix that much. I think he's a good player. I don't know how much he'll play. And when he does play, you get in a playoff series, I mean, I'm comfortable leaving him open because I don't think that's a path to winning. What do you make of Cody Martin and his fit?
I totally agree. I think Dunn's got higher upside, and I agree with what you said. It's a great point. The first half of the game last night, they were carving Oklahoma City up because the ball wasn't really touching the ground a lot. It was a lot of ball movement. They would dribble, drive, kick out, and then it went around the horn. Royce O'Neal had 5 threes in the first half. They were all good looks. Ryan Dunn had I think 1 shot or 2 shots in the first half, to your point. And when you're already a 31% three-point shooter and you take 2 shots and they're spaced out like 7 minutes apart, that's what you're going to get. I think he does have more potential if he can get a little bit more higher volume. I think he can eventually become, even if, man, it's 36% for a guy like that who's sort of Thabo Sefolosha-like in his defense. You got something. But in the way they play, that's not a great place for Cody Martin to be and thrive. It's not. And I think you're right. He's a lot like Dunn, and I think Dunn's got higher upside, and Dunn's the guy they got in the first round. You're going to give him every opportunity.
We'll move on to some real quick hitters because some of these other deals are more like maneuvering and posturing. But the Wizards get Reggie Jackson and 1 super late first. It's almost certain to be Oklahoma City's first, which will likely be the last first that they get. And the Sixers got 4 seconds. So they got off of Reggie Jackson and they turned what would have been the 30th pick into 4 second-round picks scattered over the next 4 years. Or actually not next one. I think it's 27, 28, 29. So they got some tradable second rounders. I know you love those, but hey, man, they got moved a lot today. And they just get off of Reggie Jackson. I don't know if I have tons of thoughts about this other than, it looks like they're trying to set up for the summer. I mean, the Sixers, who knows what their plan is this year, but they need flexibility to figure out themselves again this offseason. Do you have any take on this move here?
Not really. I mean, look, the picks, how I feel about that. They go in the drawer with the AA batteries, a little screwdriver, the keys to the garage. They're in there with that.
They're going to matter. You have to have something to trade.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's funny because some of these teams, like Oklahoma City too, we were talking about this yesterday. Some of these teams, they did their big thing already, going into the season. Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that's the truth with them. They already did their big things, man. And one of those guys already gone. Caleb Martin.
Yeah.
Paul George, that hasn't played much and it hasn't panned out. Embiid's been out. I still think they're just with what the bottom of the East looks like in terms of the play-in and then getting even up to that 6th spot or something. I just think they're looking at man, if we can just stay healthy in that 25 games after the All-Star break, and we actually have the potential to turn into a fairly scary team. And so how much are you going to overreact when you just made an entire overhaul of your roster over the summer? They're not going to do a whole lot. So no, there's not much there for me for the Sixers at all.
Interesting one for me, another quick hitter though, but Memphis gets Marvin Bagley and flexibility. Wizards get Marcus Smart. We wondered if they were going to move on from Luke Kennard. That was the guy I kind of speculated would be the player traded. It was Marcus Smart. They keep Kennard. I know you liked Kennard and what he brought to the team. And then the Sacramento Kings get involved in that they received Jake LaRavia in that deal. I'm more interested in this from Memphis' standpoint. There were reports that Memphis was aggressive going for Kevin Durant. They're the 2 seed right now. Kind of comfortably 2 seed. I think I have a 2-game cushion on the 2 seed in the Western Conference, and they made their move. Marcus Smart didn't play a lot this year, not needed. Okay, move on from him, retain Luke Kennard. And that just sets them up for future flexibility. But do you have any thoughts about this one or even Jake LaRavia to the Kings, which could be interesting?
That's a That's something I'm telling you over time, we're going to be talking about that move with LaRavia going to the Kings. I like LaRavia a lot. He's tough.
Yeah,
He
he is
battles.
tough.
He competes. He's really smart. You can plug him in along anybody. He's not a guy that's going to, he doesn't shoot it as well as he probably needs to eventually, but it doesn't matter. He makes a lot of winning plays. I'm actually surprised by it, man, because Taylor Jenkins loves him. I mean, when you talk to Taylor Jenkins about LaRavia, man, he loves him. But look, everybody's got to kind of shape their roster in different ways. And there wasn't going to be enough there for him. Marcus Smart, moving on from him, he's been hurt so much. I do still think Marcus Smart has some winning basketball in him for somebody. And that could potentially be a buyout situation where he ends up in the buyout market going to a contender. I think that's something really worth watching.
Yeah. He is an interesting one. It's just been so long, since we've seen him consistently. The last one I have for you, and it could be a quick hitter, but I actually think it's interesting. The Clippers acquired Marjan Beauchamp from the Milwaukee Bucks, and they sent over one of my least favorite players in the NBA, Kevin Porter Jr. So this is like just one of those moves. You're kind of moving some things around, but I do look at the Bucks and go, you just injected Kyle Kuzma and Kevin Porter Jr. into your rotation. They have talent. Kevin Porter Jr. does have talent. When he's on, he looks like a microwave scorer, but I think he's a horrible decision maker. And more to the point, you have a serious guy in Giannis, a serious guy in Dame, and you just brought in Kuzma and Kevin Porter Jr. Yes, they're moves for the margins, but to me, that's just one of those things where I believe so heavily in culture and identity and these things. And now you're counting on guys that to me are two wild cards. Kuzma less so, but Kevin Porter Jr., half the time I watch him, I wonder if he's sabotaging the Clippers. Because of the decisions he makes and the shots he takes. And now is he stepping on the court for Milwaukee? And if so, that sounds like a nightmare to me.
That one doesn't make sense. I can understand more the Kuzma thinking with where they were at with Middleton, even though Middleton looked really good on the game I did last weekend. And I was trying to envision him like kind of in the playoffs doing that kind of thing. But, he's obviously his last 3 years have been brutal with his injuries. So you get a younger guy that's kind of the same similar profile, a little bit bigger. Kuzma's a little bit longer. He can score. And remember, Kyle Kuzma, before LeBron went to the Lakers, Kyle Kuzma, like in his second year, man, was like an ascending player for them. And then LeBron came in and they got Anthony Davis. I was like, oh, by the way, we're not a rebuilding team where you're getting all this run every night. We're actually going to try to win a championship this year. So you're going to come off the bench and you're going to have to deal with your shots being cut in half and all that. I thought at the time, I said it then, that's hard for a young player. Like, wait a second. I thought this was like an ascension for me. And now I got to take the step back, even though you're going to win potentially. That's a hard adjustment. Then he goes to Washington and it just obviously no one's paying any attention. They're all hollow numbers. So I think the guy can play. And I think that now they've got younger legs in that spot, like the long wing spot. They got longer legs. He's a guy that can score. And I think that him being in a more of a winning environment around the guys you mentioned, a serious situation. And I could throw Lopez, Bobby Portis. Those guys are serious guys. Doc's a serious guy. Like that could be something to be good for Kuzma and potentially good for Kevin Porter Jr. But I'm not sure how he fits in because he's just too much of an inconsistent wild card player. I don't know ultimately that you win with a guy like that in the playoffs.
And even just having him on your roster, because here's the thing is the Bucks right now, to me, are a little shaky. They win the title in 2021, and that was the peak. And then you get knocked down a tier, right, in the NBA from contender, top favorites or whatever, to now people look at them as that fringe contender group. And anytime you bring unserious into your locker room, and again, Kuzma, I can forgive because I'm with you. Like, who knows? Kuzma can bounce back and fit into this. But Kevin Porter Jr. has never really proven that to me personally. So that's just one where it can be volatile. You never want things to feel unserious when you are trying to reclimb back into that contender status. The last thing I want to do, though, before you get out of here. So now we look at the landscape. Out east, Cavs made a deal. They were number one, 5 games up in the East. They're probably going to win the 1 seed, but do you believe in them more than before? Boston stands pat. Knicks stand pat. Pacers make a couple things around the periphery. Milwaukee around the periphery. Miami adds Wiggins. I mean, we haven't even really talked about that side of it, the Miami side of this, but Miami had Butler not playing for them. Now you give them Wiggins. Maybe that actually elevates them in some way, at least in the short term. Detroit, Orlando is getting healthy again. Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia. So what's changed the most now that all the dust has settled in the Eastern Conference for you, your perspective on where people belong?
I think for sure for me, it's just Cleveland solidifying their chances to get to the finals. That to me is the
Ooh.
biggest statement of everything that happened in the East was their acquisition of DeAndre Hunter, and now just looking at the talent in their top six, man, that's impressive. And he actually identifies a need. They identified a need and went out and met that need. A longer wing that's a top shelf defender for Tatum and Brown. And again, you're not talking about shutting anybody down. You're talking about making guys a little less efficient in a
That's all it
series.
is.
That's really what it's about. And if you can do that, you got a good chance on a lot of nights. So for me, there was a lot of little moves made around some of those teams. And actually some of the teams like below the Mendoza line, I call it, they actually did more like in terms of acquisition. So who knows how that's going to pan out for teams like Toronto and Charlotte and Washington. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The teams that are actually relevant this year, because like you said, Boston, New York, Indiana didn't do anything really. That means Cleveland is the team that went out and grabbed something that's important in this race. And I thought that for me, that's what that did. That I'm not predicting anything right now, but it's definitely now a more logical conversation if you want to make the debate that Cleveland gets to the finals.
What do you make of Miami, though? Because I'm with you. Cleveland, to me, you should be confident that they are going to challenge the Celtics better than anybody in the East has over the last 2 years, or last year and this year. But Miami, to me, they got Davion Mitchell, who I love. He's too flawed. He's too much of a one-way player to be one of my guys. But I do love him, and I do root for him. And he's serious. Like, you give it to me, he fits in Miami because he's going to play hard every single night, every single possession. And we know what his strengths and weaknesses are. There's no, like, wondering about that. And then you get Andrew Wiggins. Maybe, maybe there's something there. Do you buy that they might be able to climb up a little bit? I know we're not talking about them as contenders, but can they climb up to the Pacers level where we're talking about them on par with them?
I don't think so. I think that they can be better, though, because I do think there's no telling. You can't even quantify the impact that Jimmy Butler's had on that franchise, what's going on for the last month and beyond, but particularly what's going on here lately. And, let's just go about our business. It just doesn't work that way, man. This is constantly in the air. They've rid themselves of that. They've gotten the dark cloud out of the locker room, and now they can move forward. It's a very serious organization with a great coach. If anybody can max out what they have now, it'll be Spoelstra. But you don't even know. Maybe there's a little bit of an emotional downside of this for Wiggins. Maybe he was super happy where he was, and he's the kind of guy that needs maximum concentration, like to get out of him the most, because he can be a little bit aloof at times and passive. So we'll see. But maybe marginally better, but I don't put them in that group at that top four, because I'm actually really, really liking Indiana again, the way they've been playing and just watching them climb. That's why I'm really thrilled that this game I'm doing on Saturday, not only Luka's return, it's Luka's debut with the Lakers. It's also my first time seeing Indiana in person this year. So I'm really excited about that game.
I'm going to buy a little Miami stock. I'm just going to buy a couple little flyers on Miami, because that is a team that has been facing the biggest distraction in the NBA, and that's out of the way now. And I think Wiggins is a good player. And I like Davion Mitchell. There might be a refocusing they get, a clarity that they get of what they're supposed to be doing. And I just never count them out. One thing real quick I want to ask you, we didn't even talk about this, but Toronto acquired Brandon Ingram. I don't know what they're doing. They have all these wings now. It's a very RJ Barrett, Ingram, you got Grady Dick, Quickly. They have a lot with Scotty Barnes. They have a lot of interesting pieces. I don't know if it makes sense, and they probably end up just trading these guys down the road and figuring something out there. But do you have a take on Ingram getting traded and going up north of the border?
You were just it sounded like you were reading off. You ever go to a restaurant and you look at the menu and you're like, you don't understand how all these things are in the same restaurant? Like you're like, I don't understand. What is this place? Is it
the
seafood?
Pizza,
is it
the
is
tacos?
It Italian?
Yeah.
Is it a steakhouse? Sushi? Like it's all on this menu. What's going on? And that's kind of what the Raptors. Let's just grab some stuff and see. I mean, look, man, Brandon Ingram. My goodness, if he was gonna be what he was supposed to be, he would have been it. But now, I don't know. I don't think that does a whole lot for me. Sorry, the Raptors are just one of those teams. It's gonna take a couple of years to figure out what they want to be.
So the Thunder stand pat at the deadline. Memphis makes that move for flexibility going forward. Houston stands pat. Denver stands pat. Lakers obviously made a huge move. Clippers moves on the margins. Minnesota stands pat. Dallas completely retooled. Kings completely retooled. Phoenix more or less stand pat. Few little moves on the margins. Warriors get Jimmy Butler. Spurs get De'Aaron Fox. So that's your West. Who to you is climbing based on the last week and everything that has happened?
Well, listen, there's no telling, honestly, there's no telling what the short-term upside is going to be for the Lakers. I mean, we got to give that some time. This is a massive, massive adjustment for the way they play, the way LeBron plays, Luka plays. You know, we got to see how, but that could click. If that clicks, obviously, that's like, oh man, look out with those
What
two
is
guys.
the upside though? What's your realistic upside this year, knowing what the pieces are for the Lakers? What's like where you were not fooling yourself? You're saying, hey man, this is possible.
No question. Upside, ceiling, conference finals.
Okay.
There's no question in my mind. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't know what I'm going to have to see the rest of the way for me to think anybody other than Oklahoma City is winning the Western Conference. That team is special. They are special defensively. They've got a superstar playing the best basketball of his career offensively. Everything's built around. They haven't even been 100%. Chet's about to hit the court. Let's see what that looks like. They're incredibly well coached, and they love each other, man. That group loves each other. I think they're going to the finals. So therefore, you start asking yourself then, well, all right, is there anybody out there, if this kind of clicks with Luka and LeBron, is there anybody out there that you go, there's no way they could beat them? There's no other team that you would say that about. So, and look, by the way, I think the ceiling also for Denver would be conference finals. And actually, if they got to the conference finals, that'd be interesting because you're like, okay, they got this Jokic guy that's so unique that, you know, what does that do to Oklahoma City? But I still think it's OKC's year in the West. So, yeah, the Lakers, their upside ceiling, conference finals, and lose to Oklahoma City, depending on how the brackets play out. You're not the 4 or 5 seed. You've got a chance to avoid them for 2 rounds. Yeah, man, anything's possible if it clicks. Outside of that, I think the most impactful move was San Antonio getting De'Aaron Fox. Now, I don't know about this year, but he looked good the other night blending in that fast, man. 24 and 13. They haven't had anything like that since they drafted Victor. So, and they're right now sitting, 4 games under 500, but they are 1 loss out of the 8 spot.
Man,
they're going to start winning some games, man, sooner than later.
Yeah.
They kept Stephon Castle. It's incredible being able to pull that off and keep Castle. So I think that move, whether it's this year, next year, the year after, whatever it may be, that could be the one. Ultimately, it'll be Luka at LA. I believe in Luka. I think he's going to do great things there. Ultimately, that'll be the one 5 years from now that stands out. After that, it might be this De'Aaron Fox pickup.
I don't even think we mentioned it. Again, I'm operating on my phone today, so I'm struggling here, but we didn't even mention Bogdanovich for Terrence Mann. You know, Bogdanovich now going to the Clippers, which they need scoring. I actually love Bogdanovich. It's not the place I would have put him like as his perfect fit because they do play, you know, a style that I don't know perfectly lends itself to him, but they needed a scorer. And he's another guy that can get hot, put the ball on the floor, spot up and shoot the 3. So the Clippers are another team that I'm kind of buying into as, man, they have the right pieces to kind of put things together here in a short runway. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it, man. And honestly, listen, Terrence Mann is I like him a lot, but Terrence Mann's expendable because they've got several other guys that are similar. And so, I've loved their defense all year. You're right. More than anything else, man, they need somebody that can space the floor playing off of Harden and another guy playing alongside Powell that can make it really difficult for defenses to cover Harden appropriately and be able to rotate to both shooters. They've got streaky guys and Powell. Now they've got 2 snipers playing alongside Harden. And again, Terrence Mann, very good defender, tough, plays hard. They've got several of those. So I think that was a nice move, nice pickup for the Clippers.
2 teams you did not mention, the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings, both of whom made superstar trades, LaVine and Jimmy Butler. So does that mean you're not buying them as a team that like meaningfully increased what you expect out of them?
Man, I don't know. How much
the Butler one in particular is like,
I don't know how to view Jimmy Butler right now, man. I went back just now today and I pulled up some stuff I typed his name. The first thing that popped up was him at media day with pink hair over one eye. I'm like, what are we doing, man? So I'm just going, I don't know. I don't know. His production is down, but like again, he clearly wasn't into it. He wasn't
Yeah.
engaged. I think it's just interesting the way it played out. I'm not going to sign a gold extension with Golden State. Jimmy Butler has just signed a 2-year extension with Golden State. He's agreed to it. I'm like, what's going on? Is this all about money all the time? Like, I don't know. So I do think that if he is super motivated and out to prove a point, he's a big difference maker. I just don't think the Golden State Warriors have enough anyway. The rest of their roster, I just don't. So can I just take, that's the one team. Can I just do a wait and see on that one?
And I don't know.
That looks like, man. And even in that system with everything
Right.
predicated off of all that off ball movement. And he's a guy that likes to play ISO basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Him and Draymond Green on the same team. That's going to be interesting, just with their fiery personality. Like, I can just see those guys clashing a little bit. We'll see, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they won't be better, but for me to think like, oh, they got Jimmy Butler, watch out West. I don't feel that way today. I don't know if you do.
Sacramento's 25-25. I'm with you on Golden State, by the way. I'm fine in saying I don't know. That's such a weird team. Like, they've been hard to analyze all year. Now you add the biggest wild card in the NBA. So I'm comfortable saying, hey, I could see it. I could see it not working out. We'll see together. Sacramento, though, 25-25. And I'm just kind of surprised there's less buzz. By the way, did you see Malik Monk after the game yesterday in the locker room said, he was asked about De'Aaron Fox, and he said, I don't know. By the looks of it, a lot of people were saying he wanted to be out. And then a long time ago, like he's basically saying, we all knew he didn't want to be here. Good riddance. And then was asked, well, did you talk to him since the trade? And he said, no, I haven't talked to him since, and I'll probably talk to him at some point down the road. Meaning, like, I'm not in a hurry to call that guy, but we'll reconnect. To me, that stands out. And now you bring in, like,
all you need to know about that. That's all you need to know, man. Like, that's just intuition on interpersonal human relationships. Like that's what that's about. And that tells you all you need to know. Look, they were 10-1 when they made the coaching change. Doug Christie, took over and they started rolling. And it was like, okay, they've lost 5 out of 7. And, part of that might've been some of this lingering stuff in the air about De'Aaron Fox, and that's now resolved. They did definitely add pieces to their team that I like. Zach LaVine can play, man. And LaRavia, I really like as a glue role player type guy. Still don't know if they're just going to hand the ball to Malik Monk every night, and that's how they're going to play, with LaVine and DeRozan next to. I don't know what that's going to look like. They have a lot of talent. And maybe with Fox gone, we're going to find out. If with Fox gone, if that was something that was hanging in the air, it doesn't seem like a bad guy. Doesn't matter. It can be a bad situation, even if it's not a bad guy. That I've seen that a million times. It's just not conducive to winning when everybody in here right now is not 100% bought into this. And it doesn't sound like that was the case. That can be something that can be uplifting to a team. And now they move forward with some new pieces. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be in the mix and interesting in the West.
Yeah. All right. And a lot of teams stood pat. So we're going to have to wait and see. When you point out, though, that the Minnesota Timberwolves are the 7 seed with 23 losses, and the Spurs are the 6 seed with 26. It just shows you, man, it's up for grabs. It really is up for grabs for anybody in that bunch. And we just went through a whole list of teams, and the answer for every single one's kind of the same. I could see them being good. I could see them being bad. Let's just play the games and find out what happens. I'm excited for that. You are next on ESPN on Saturday. Is that what it is? Saturday for Luka's debut?
I'll be there, man. Courtside, calling the game on ESPN. Special edition Saturday matinee on ESPN NBA. They don't do this. I mean, let's just the playoffs.
Send out the bat signal, the Legler
signal.
Man.
They don't do it. They created this opportunity, and it just so happened. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it because we got another game that night on ABC. Actually, Celtics Knicks is 8:30 Saturday night. So that game's already was on the docket. There was no game Saturday afternoon we were going to televise, and they of course, the machination went to work with the ESPN and the league and everything, and they got it done, man. And it's so grateful. I'm going to call this game with Dave Pasch, George Sedano on the sideline, and I am stoked to be there for this. I'm going to tell you something. I just went to the Dallas airport on my layover. Okay,
oh, no.
And I'm listen, Dallas are my people. You know that
they love you out there.
They do, man. And it was amazing to me how many people, first of all, recognized me in the airport in like an hour and a half layover. It was kind of weird. Like it was so many people.
Yeah.
But this
awesome.
guy said to me that he's got season tickets to the Mavericks. He's keeping his tickets. I was like, okay, good. That's good for him. He goes, I'm keeping them because I'm going to buy a Luka Doncic 77 Golden State jersey and wear it to every game.
Lakers jersey, but sure, yeah.
I'm sorry, Lakers jersey, and wear it
Yeah.
to every home game in Dallas. And he goes, and I got a bunch of buddies that are planning on doing the same thing. And I was just kind of like, man, that's kind of where we're at with this right now. Everybody there that I talked to today in the airport, Dallas people, was in a state of shock over what had just happened. So for me to be there, it's just history, man. Pash was great. He told me, he's, I mean, man, this is history. Like this is, because they've had how many big guys play their first game for the Lakers over the years. Shaq's first
all
game,
of them.
LeBron's first game,
all of them.
Luka's first game. It's something you're going to remember forever, man. And I'm going to be sitting there on the call. So I'm really excited, man.
I'm excited for that. I'm also excited once again for Monday. We're doing we're going to have to brand this. We're going to have to come up with a name, but on Playback, pull it up again, James. Here's the key though. You've got to sign up playback.tv/all-NBA show. Do me a favor and go to that link right now because our show's wrapping up and sign up. Make sure you got everything going. And here's the thing. We have free league because you have to have league pass or you have to have some kind of login to be able to see the second screen. You can pull it up and watch just us and then pull it up, on your TV, but we highly recommend you do the playback.tv/all-NBA show. You log in with whatever, your cable provider is or your league pass. And if you don't have league pass, go there now. Because on Monday, we're going to be awarding. We got a bunch of codes we can give out to give you free league pass. So if you want free league pass, it doesn't just work on Playback. It'll also work, on your laptop or whatever else. If you want free league pass, go there now because Monday morning we'll be handing out free passes to league pass, which is a hell of a deal. And then that night, 8 to 10 Eastern time, you can listen to me and Legs chop it up with a bunch of guests as we watch these games and point out what we're recognizing. All right, we got one super chat. Is that right? Or a couple of them came in, James?
A couple of them today.
Nico says, with Chet back, what team in the West is the biggest threat to a fully healthy OKC squad? You kind of answered that already, but if you had to distill it to one team, who would you say?
Man, I would probably say, man, oh man, oh man. I'm going to say Denver.
I agree.
But look, the way it's positioned now, and who knows how it plays out. I mean, they could end up getting OKC in the second round. So, you don't want that.
And Denver's in the same boat as all these other teams. They got big question marks, like we just believe Jokic. So we say they get penciled in, but they have a lot of stuff to figure out themselves still.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Outside of Denver, I would probably then the next group of teams would be Memphis, the Lakers, and the Mavericks, because again, it could really click with LA. I mean, we got to see it. I do think Dallas, there's no reason to think Dallas is not going to be a very good team. They got a star point guard. They got a star big. They got nice role players.
Yeah.
They're going to be a good team. There's no question in my mind. So that's the next group. And Memphis, the more I watch Memphis, the more impressed I am by them.
I know. I love Memphis. I don't buy them in the playoffs just yet, but Matt Herndy says, I hate the JB trade for my Dubs, but maybe rejuvenated Steph and Dre. Paid, motivated Jimmy, healthy JK, less tension with more trades. Second round? ? I mean, at this moment, second round would feel great. They might not even make the playoffs, so maybe that's a win in and of itself.
Right. Let's start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
Not too many babies run 40-yard sprints before they crawl. All right. So let's just start there.
Is that the last one, James?
That's it. That's all for today.
All right, hit that outro music. Everybody, we appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, if you're new to the show, hit that subscribe button. I promise you want to hear Legs talking 4 times a week live. We haven't talked games this week because it's been trades, but most of the time we go deep on the games. We break down the X's and O's. We talk about player breakdowns. We just talk about what's happening. We let the NBA tell us the stories and then we reflect it back to you. The trade deadline is the story this week, so we went heavy on it. But if you're new to the show and you enjoy hearing myself and Tim Legler, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one, everyone.
All silly like the mayor.